Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Hello, Peter. Would you first of all like to introduce yourself to us?
Yes, I'm Peter Kilty. I'm a lay Dominican. I have been now for a number of years. In my working life, I've been a teacher, a lawyer, a judge, and I've worked with very, very complicated and difficult children. That was when I retired, actually, from law. I began my journey as a lay Dominican, and I began working with these children. I'm retired completely now, but I still have lots of things to do.
Good. Okay. So Peter, can you tell us what first attracted you to the Lay Dominicans?
I've thought about this, Teresa, and it's almost like marriage. In fact, my wife and I celebrated our 55th wedding anniversary on the 20th of July. As I reminded her, you'd get less for mass murder, but why do you find someone? Why do you fall in love? Why do you continue this wonderful ongoing sacrament that is a sacrament, of course, of two people? The priest is merely a witness. So with the Dominicans, I was, if you could use the phrase, a Dominican child. I was born in Holy Cross, Leicester Parish, baptized there, was an altar boy from the age of 18 till 18 when I went off to university. And I've always been attracted by the Dominican order. I like the fact that so many people will say, oh, you're a clever chap. Well, you can't believe all this mumbo jumbo about Christianity. Someone used the words mumbo jumbo. Well, the Dominicans can prove that you can believe with your head as well as your heart. The heart is the most important, but the head is also important. And we have a task, I think, as lay Dominicans, to respond if you're sitting around a table at a pub or whatever to someone who says, you can't believe in all that mumbo jumbo, Pete. So that's really what attracted me to the Dominicans. And I have met over the course of my life some wonderful priests, and of course in the old days, lay brothers. I remember Brother Paul from Holy Cross and Brother Antoninus. And I go back to people like Ian Hislop, Basil Baxter, John Dominic or Alan Shields. So it's, if you like, I'm a bit like a stick of Blackpool rock. If you broke me open, you'd see Dominicans there.
Okay, right. So that's a wonderful gift, really, isn't it, to have had the Dominicans throughout your entire life? Yes, and your pursuit of spreading the word and seeking out the truth. Yes, that makes sense. Okay, so how has being a lay Dominican impacted your life, do you think?
Well, I think it keeps me going. I think it was that great Dominican, Vincent McNabb, who my dear mother, God rest her soul, remembered. Well, all she could remember as a little girl was that he had great hobnailed boots. But Vincent McNabb used to say that it kept him going. And I think it's part of trying, with God's help and God's grace, to lead a Christian life, a life of virtue, and to spread the message. So there's obviously the fellowship you have, or perhaps it's the wrong word. I always think we ought to call our groups not fraternities, but chapters, because frater means brother. Hey, what about the women? But also the prayer, the study, it all comes together. And to cease to be a Dominican is, for me at least, thanks to God's grace, and I pray for that every day, seems to me something impossible.
It runs through your veins. Okay.
Like the wording Blackpool on a stick of rock.
Yeah. Okay. So you've had a wonderful career, done many, many things. So in your day-to-day life, what opportunities are there for you to preach? Preach in its broadest meaning.
Well, I actually have preached once at Leicester Cathedral, and I preached at a Christian Unity service this year. But leaving aside that kind of preaching, I think first of all, you try and preach by your life. For example, sadly, there are around the shopping area near to where I live, the usual people on the pavement. And okay, you reach in your pocket and you drop a bit of change. But I think as a Christian, it's to engage them, to treat them as human beings, not ignore them. You don't know their journeys, their stories. And I always say at the end, God bless. I might think he's a funny old so-and-so, but that's what I do. I'm also very active in my parish church, in the Bible study group, and just through talking to people. As you know, Teresa, I can talk the hind leg off a donkey, well, both hind legs. And I feel that is something I can use. When I worked with these very disturbed children who had lives that you wouldn't want to think about, really, children are not taken into care and are not fostered for reasons. I always, without saying, are you saved or anything like that, I always try to put something in. I think what you've got to avoid, because it doesn't work, is the, are you saved? Would you like a copy of the Bible? That sort of thing doesn't work with people. I don't think it ever did.
No.
And when our Holy Father, St. Dominic, was in the pub talking to the Cathar landlord, I'm sure that wasn't the approach. He got talking to the man first, got to know the man, and of course, converted him.
Yes. Engagement is very important, isn't it? Yeah, definitely. Okay, then. So I'm interested, I'm curious, Peter, which Dominican saint do you have the most devotion towards and why?
It feels a little bit like that program I enjoy listening to, Desert Island Discs, where some people try to cheat a little bit and say, well, 4 my books could I have? Well, first of all, the big fella, St. Thomas Aquinas, whose canonization, the anniversary of whose canonization was celebrated the other day. But apart from St. Dominic, the other two, so you see, I've upped it from 1 to 4. The other two are St. Martin de Porres. There is nothing worse than racism, and he did suffer from racism. Curiously enough, you don't have to be non-white to suffer from racism. Certainly I've had 2 children in various circumstances. I won't repeat the language, but put it like this, the word Fenian was used. I don't think my daughter, who was called by someone a Fenian female dog, being a scientist, knew what a Fenian was. So racism of any type is bad. And that's why St. Martin de Porres is such a wonderful saint. Because also, yes, St. Thomas Aquinas could almost have been called two-brain Aquinas, a man of immense intellect, as was St. Albert the Great. But you don't have to be, and this is important, you don't have to have 3 PhDs to be a Dominican. You don't have to say, well, I want to be a lay Dominican because I have so many GCSEs and so many A levels, and I've got this degree and I've got that degree and I've got another degree. It's just not necessary. And my final and 4th one, there are so many great Dominican saints, but of course, and funnily enough, I'm taking some people round the Frassati Centre next month as a member of the Victorian Society, Blessed Pier Giorgio. And, there was a man, he didn't go around with a halo. I mean, got the old pipe in his hand and so on. But not only was he a man of prayer, but he was also a man of practical charity. And he was a man who was not afraid to stand up politically. And again, you have to, in certain circumstances, I think, say, well, this is my political opinion. I think that this is morally right, and this is what I'm standing up for. So instead of 1, I've got 4. But if you ask me, you can only have 1. Oh, hard choice. I think I'd settle for Blessed Pier Giorgio.
Well, I think your 4 choices, Peter, fully reflect the breadth and range of Dominicans that we have in our family, in our order. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah. Okay. Final question is about books. You are allowed to recommend more than 1 if you feel so moved to. So which book or books would you recommend for someone to read who is thinking about the Dominicans in general?
Well, I would say anything by Timothy Radcliffe. I've got all his books, including the latest one. He writes with such ease for a start. It's like having someone in the pub opposite to you, and you're supping your pint and you're talking. I think possibly I Call You Friends is my favorite, but the new book published, which I got for my birthday, is again something I've just started reading, but that's got an awful lot in it. So I would say start with virtually anything by Timothy Radcliffe.
Yes.
The other writer I love, difficult sometimes to get his books, but in these days when we have to think about the climate, about how we live, Vincent McNab was a prophet before his time, and his writings are still worth reading. I remember he wrote a lovely article called Miss Meekhart's Living, which was about someone who went in to get an item from a shop, and the shopkeeper said, "Oh no, we don't sell those. That's Miss Meekhart's Living." And the way in which we should encourage, if you like, the small, the local, and we should be thinking about what we are doing to God's earth, and how we can live more simply. I'm not saying we turn into grumpy, stinky hermits, far from it. But sometimes you feel, do I need that? Do I really want that? And sometimes when you go around a really big supermarket, years ago, I took a Polish seminarian round, I think, a local Waitrose. And you know the phrase, eyes popping out of your head. At that time, Poland would have had nothing like that. I mean, you've got about 15 different types of olive oil or something. He was just gobsmacked. So most of all, I would say to people, read Timothy Ratcliffe.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. It's been a pleasure having this short but wonderful conversation with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Thank you for organising it. And see you, God willing, in September at the Frassati Centre in Leicester.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, well,
okay.
Have a good day and God bless. Bye.
Bye.